You're very welcome along to Ireland Aim on Virgin Media 1. It's great to have you with us. It is Wednesday the 12th of July and you have made it to midweek.
Oh, he did it. He didn't march as he was doing it though. We've got a jam-packed show for you this morning. We're talking everything from celebrity cooking. Is that different to normal cooking?
Well, we're going to find out.
We're going to find out.
Yeah.
And we're also going to be chatting comedy a little bit later on.
Bad cooking, I think it means, doesn't it?
Ah, you're a good cook.
No, celebrity cooking, that's not me. Anyway, first, the RTE saga, it continues. When will it ever end? The aftermath of the Ryan Tubridy and his agent Noel Kelly's appearances before two Oireachtas committees. Yesterday, we are going to be discussing how the pair handled themselves and whether the country's questions have finally been answered.
Or if they haven't, if you think, right, RTE have more to answer because they're going ahead of them again. We'd love to hear from you, how you feel. I think a lot of the country is like, oh my God, I'm actually tired from this. 089 611 111 RTE going before the committee again. And then we've got GAA go as well. Like, that's later on today. Plus, he's said to have a granite chin for his ability to withstand some powerful punches, especially from our own Steve Collins. Certainly went for him. Former boxer Chris Eubank. Will he have this monocle on? I'm hoping so. He'll be joining us for a chat a little bit later on.
Looking forward to that. And the comedy king, Kevin McGahern, will be stopping by to discuss his sellout stand-up success.
Another sellout success over there this morning, Alan Hughes. Hi.
Good morning
the
to
real
you.
Panto King.
So exasperated with me there. He's like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Now, with last week recording the world's hottest day ever, we're going to be discussing the marine heat wave off Ireland's coast and how it's attracting new species of jellyfish to Irish waters. Plus, in the kitchen, there's curry later on, and we're going to keep it cool on the catwalk. All that to come this morning. But now let's go over to the Virgin Media News Hub, and here's Anne O'Donnell.
Thanks, Alan. Good morning. Well, a protest calling for major reform is planned to get underway at RTE this lunchtime. It comes after trade unions met yesterday as the presenter Ryan Tubridy and his agent Noel Kelly were being grilled by two Oireachtas committees. Well, questions still remain this morning about Ryan Tubridy's future at RTE. The new boss, Kevin McGahern, has said he hopes to make a decision on the matter by the end of the month.
So he's going to have at least three things: the people inside RTE, the listeners, whether they want him back, and let's not mess around, the advertisers. So there's a number of things that he has to consider before he makes a fairly major decision.
The controversial coverage of football and hurling championship matches on GAA Go will be under the spotlight this afternoon. The issue of providing games either free to air or via a subscription service will be examined at the Oireachtas Committee on Sport. Well, GAA Go has been widely criticised after some high-profile matches were only available on the paid platform and not on RTE. The funeral of Andrew O'Donnell will take place later this morning. The 18-year-old student from St Michael's College in Dublin died after a fall on the Greek island of Ios.
Andrew O'Donnell and his friends were celebrating the end of the Leaving Cert on the island of Ios when the fatal incident occurred. He died on July 1st after falling on his way home from a night out. The 18-year-old has been described as having a vibrant spirit, a kind heart and a sense of humour that brightened the darkest of days. He's also being remembered for his passion for sports and his footballing talents. Tragically, another school friend from St Michael's College, Max Wall, also died in a separate incident on the holiday and was laid to rest on Monday. Andrew O'Donnell's funeral will take place in Donnybrook this morning, followed by a private family cremation. Trish Laverty, Virgin Media News.
Our retained firefighters are being balloted for strike action following Labour Court recommendations to resolve a row over pay and working conditions. SIPTU is recommending the rejection of the Labour Court findings, which could result in 2,000 part-time firefighters around the country returning to the picket line. Members are unhappy with the level of pay increase on offer.
Well, it's going to ballot. So it's going to be balloted in the next week or so. We anticipate that it will be rejected. There's a recommendation for a rejection coming from the National Committee. So we anticipate that this recommendation will be overwhelmingly rejected by the people who work in the retained fire service, and then it'll be back to strike action again.
NATO leaders say they would allow Ukraine to join the alliance when allies agree and conditions are met. Just hours after the President Volodymyr Zelensky blasted the organisation's failure to set a timetable for his country as absurd. Although many NATO members have funnelled arms and ammunition to Zelensky's forces, there's no consensus among the 31 allies for admitting Ukraine into NATO's ranks. Instead, alliance leaders decided to remove obstacles on Ukraine's membership path so that it can join more quickly once the war with Russia is over.
As the president made clear, there is an important reason why they are not becoming a member of NATO right now, because it would instantly put the United States in a shooting war with Russia.
Back home, the National Children's Hospital Board will give an update on the development of the new National Children's Hospital and its spiralling costs at the Health Committee today. It comes as the contractors haven't met certain deadlines in building the facility at the St James's campus in Dublin. While there are concerns about the rate of progress in its construction, board members will also be questioned about alterations and additional costs.
We compare 14 insurance quotes to get you the best deal. So choose chill and work smarter, not harder.
This morning we'll see scattered showers of rain or drizzle with sunshine occasionally breaking through, with highest temperatures of 14 to 18 degrees. And this afternoon showers will turn heavy and possibly thundery in Ulster, highest temperatures of 16 to 19 degrees. Tonight then there will be clear spells and well scattered showers mainly in Ulster and in Munster, with lowest temperatures of 9 degrees. And that's your weather outlook.
Chill Insurance work harder so you can work smarter. We compare 14 quotes to get you the best deal.
Now it's time to take a look at this morning's papers, and there is one story dominating the headlines. We'll start with the Irish Times. It goes with Tubridy accuses RTE of misleading the public on payments saga. Ryan Tubridy and his agent Noel Kelly accused RTE of giving false and misleading accounts of the Star's payments at not one but two Oireachtas Committee hearings yesterday.
The Examiner leads with, "This is not the Ryan Tubridy scandal, this is the RTE scandal." The former Late Late Show presenter has hit back at being made the poster boy for RTE's failures.
Touch and go if I'm to keep my job is the top story on the Daily Mail. The paper claims Ryan Tubridy will learn by the end of the month whether he has a future at RTE.
The Mirror goes with Tubbs, the fight back. RTE boss Kevin McGahern has said Tubridy won't be gone by the end of the week after the presenter said it multiple times yesterday.
The Sun leads with the untruth hurts.
The Star leads with dull out war.
The Herald goes with Broadcastaway. Director General Kevin Backhurst told the Herald that moving the broadcaster from its Donnybrook campus could be considered.
A new RTE boss opens door to sale of Montrose. That's the front page of the Irish Independent. The paper tells how RTE could sell its Dublin 4 campus as part of plans to overhaul the crisis-hit broadcaster, as Mr Backhurst deals with the fallout from Ryan Tubridy's secret payments.
Well, you know what? We are going to be discussing Ryan Tubridy and Noel Kelly's Oireachtas appearance after this short break.
Yes, we'd love to hear from you again. 0896 111 111. Are you Team Tubbs? Are you on Team RTE? What way do you see it? We'd love to get your opinion. We're going to be discussing it next. You're very welcome back. Now, it was the moment that everybody has been waiting for, and as the nation was glued to the coverage of Ryan Tubridy and Noel Kelly's questioning in the Oireachtas, there was a lot to unpack. Over 6 hours of it.
Yep. Before we chat to our guests, here's a reminder of some of the things that were said yesterday.
The narrative of the last 3 weeks has been that not only did I take this payment, but that I somehow contrived to hide it. So let me reiterate, I actually waived my entitlement to this payment and I didn't receive 1 cent of it. I hid nothing. I had nothing to hide. The result of this is that I've become the face of a national scandal. I've been accused of being complicit, deceitful and dishonest. I think the statement of June the 22nd was very unhelpful in this regard. You will hear 10,000 stories about how the Late Late Show decision came to pass. There's only one, I believe, and that's mine. I loved the job. I did it for 14 years. I ran out of gas. I chose to leave.
Are you still getting paid by RT at the minute?
Yes, I am, yeah.
And in relation to that verbal agreement in place, what are the terms?
Sorry, as a presenter of the radio programme. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I could be out of a job by Friday.
And we just saw Alan Dillon there just discussing. He did very well yesterday. Joining us to discuss, our political reporter with the Irish Times, Jack Horgan-Jones, communications consultant Orla Carmody, and via Zoom broadcaster and former RT employee Gareth O'Callaghan. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning. I'm going to start with you, Jack. There were 7 untruths that Ryan Tubridy and his agent Noel Kelly went in to say yesterday. They came out of the blocks and they went in and basically said, as Noel Kelly said yesterday, RT had lied. How do you think that they did and that messaging went across to the Irish?
Well, it was an extraordinary full frontal assault by Tubridy and his agent Noel Kelly on RT, on the broadcaster, effectively admitting very little, if any, blame for what has transpired. I think at one point Ryan Tubridy did say, you know, I should have challenged the figures, but that doesn't actually move on his position from his second statement of a couple of weeks ago. That's more or less what he said then when it came to the apportionment of blame, and that's what he says now. The tables and the focus was very much on RT, and they sought to bat back any suggestion that they should have raised concerns, that the deeply unorthodox structure of the transactions is something that should have set off red flags within Tubridy's camp, and effectively sought to say that they were acting on instruction from RT at all times, and that the separate payments from what they said they thought was Renault could not and should not be considered as part of Ryan Tubridy's overall pay package, and that these were parallel but distinct arrangements, and that RT was wrong to portray them as part of his remuneration from the station, even though we now know ultimately they were all being paid by RT. So it was a remarkable, as I say, full frontal attack that sought to more or less blame the broadcaster and exonerate the presenter and his agent.
Hey, absolutely. The opening statements were compelling view. It was a scattergun approach, certainly. But once the questions opened up to Orla, I felt the numbers didn't quite add up in a lot of things that he was saying. So he went on the emotive front and talked about the people of Ireland and the children and how trusted he is. Do you think it washed?
No, I do not. I think what we saw was very clearly a very strategic, planned approach to what they said. And I think both Ryan Tubridy and Noel Kelly said, oh, we've been burning the midnight oil and we've been preparing for this, which is why the paperwork was late. It was very clear their strategy was a very strong, bombastic attack, as you say, put all the blame on RTE. Then deflect as much as you possibly can, and then run down the clock with exactly what you've said, the emotive piece and the charity work, which we all know about and which is actually not relevant. And I think a lot of what Ryan Tubridy said was how this has been so awful and horrendous for him, which undoubtedly it is. The higher you are, the bigger the splat when you hit the ground, there's no doubt. But his trauma is not necessarily the biggest trauma in the room. And I think that is the part that you're referring to that we're kind of reacting to. Come on. There are people in RTE who are the good working people of RTE we've all spoken about who are very traumatised, not only about knowing this, but about having to pay their ESB bill tomorrow or whatever it might be. So I'm not sure if that
think
was
there's
the
people
right
who are
approach.
working inside an RTE who are on the breadline because of Ryan Tubridy?
No, but I think there are a lot of people in RTE who are on low wages, same as in any industry. And I think those people have the same struggles that anybody else. But what I'm talking about is their hurt. And I felt that Ryan is not necessarily the biggest hurt in the room. And I felt that that mightn't necessarily be the way to go with it. The double act between Ryan and Noel Kelly too was very, very interesting to watch. And the body language between them. I think it is very surprising and a little bit naive, I suppose, how Ryan deferred so much to him, to the extent that some of the deputies had to say, will you answer the question yourself? And that thing of, I don't know what my agent does, I trust my agent. Would Ryan not have taken an example from his own hero, Gay Byrne, who many years ago famously trusted a financial advisor and got badly burnt? You know, I'm a director of a company. I can't trust my accountant, a wonderful accountant, to do everything for me. I have to sign off on it. I have to know about it. So again, I feel it was a bit unbelievable that Ryan would have handed so much of control to his agent and not to the extent that he wouldn't be aware of the detail you were pointing out there, Jack, in terms of who did what and when. So I feel it's not it's not credible that you would hand so much, or even if you have handed so much control to your agent, well, actually you shouldn't, because in law you're supposed to stand over these things yourself.
And the agent to RTE, very similar.
Yes.
Gareth, we'll be with you in just one second, but as that, they're trying to get across that this is an RTE scandal, not a Ryan Tubridy scandal, and we're trying to get to the core of a company who is paying huge amounts for various reasons, where there's a massive wage bill, and this is what the questioning has opened up. When we saw for 6 hours yesterday TDs asking the same questions over and over and over and over and over again, which seemed incredibly inefficient. Like most of us are seeing inside the political system now and going, what is going on there? Because at one stage I was like, OK, one of the TDs kept asking questions. I was like, does he want to make Ryan Tubridy cry? Like, it just felt, what's going on here? Like, do you think that they were grandstanding an awful lot of the time? Because you're like, they were running down the clock. I felt an awful lot of the TDs were running down the clock.
Look,
asking, just going, oh, I'm going to get a soundbite here and I'm going to be on the television.
Look, that is part and parcel of
Is that it? So that's what they have to do?
Yeah, I've served my time in the salt mines of Leinster House, and I know that a lot of it is about going out and trying to generate a clip that you get on the 6-1 or the News at 1.
I know,
or something,
and as someone watching it,
like
who's like, I vote, I didn't vote for this.
Sure, but in the round, I think that, you know, they for every person who goes out and tries to get the clip, there's another person who will run through stuff methodically, and sometimes the same person will do both, you know, so you have to take it in the round. And we've had 20 hours plus of committee hearings at this stage, and I think that they have, even though they've been far from perfect, they have added to the sum total of human knowledge, and we do know things now about the scandal that we wouldn't have known going in. And you see people like Fine Gael's Alan Dillon yesterday, who went about things quite methodically, and Alan Kelly as well, and I thought Shane Cassell's on the media committee, all added value, you know.
And
so there is more and more coming out.
The tough questions, we criticise them because we pay them to ask those questions. I know, we want to answer.
The same thing over and over.
Some of them asked very, very good questions. Again, people like Melda Munster were very strong, very clear in what they said. But then some of the time, if they let themselves down, it was, I think, in saying beforehand, we want fulsome answers, we want you to be honest and open, and then the odd time saying, give it to me any yes or no. And closing down what the person was going to say.
They were frustrated. The documents arrived late. The documents were meant to arrive the night before. They didn't arrive till 8:30 in the morning. It's very hard to try and find new areas to pick apart when you don't have the info. Gareth, can we bring you in on this? On the Ryan Tubridy situation particularly, you worked in RT for a long time. You still, I'm sure, talk to a lot of colleagues in there at the minute. Kevin McGahern has said that he will gauge the mood of the company before they decide whether Ryan Tubridy comes back or not. What have you heard?
Just anger. Anger seems to be the abiding feeling from the half a dozen or so people who I would still be in contact with. I think the people I worked with, many of whom have passed away, I have to say sadly, would have been appalled as well. I think what the people in RTE really want now is they want Ryan to answer the questions. They do. To be perfectly honest with you, I'm sick of listening to Noel Kelly because he's not convincing me whatsoever. And Ryan said something yesterday that I was appalled at, and it was just, he shouldn't have said it. He pointed to Noel Kelly and he said, this man minds my career and he minds me. Ryan Tubridy's 50 years of age. He doesn't need anybody to mind him. You know, and if he's going to continue to pass the buck over to Kelly, well, then he's going to achieve nothing. One word comes to mind here, scapegoat. Ryan Tubridy is now very perilously falling into that category. Everybody in that room yesterday struck me as wanting to find a scapegoat. And Tubridy, unless he stands on his own 2 feet, he's going to lose his scalp here. He's not just going to lose his job, he's going to lose his reputation and his credibility. Noel Kelly was arguing about the way he does business yesterday. He didn't appear to me to be putting up any palpable defence for his client. Ryan wasn't putting up any personal defence for his own situation. My thinking would be, from what I've heard from my old friends in RT, and I still have quite a few of them there, is that they want answers from Ryan Tubridy. We thought that we had moved away from this period of, unaccountable carry on, which was the name of the game in RTE right up until right up till today. You got to remember that 20 years ago...
Gareth, he sat there for 6 hours and was answering questions, right? And you say he's passing the buck off to his agent and that you want to hear more from him and his agent is answering for him. I suppose their whole thing about the untruths and also how RTE has been run for decades. Did that give you any pause to go, yeah, I've worked in that organisation and they do all of this and the public don't know what's going on and there are big wage bills and we need to get to the kernel of this? Or do you think that the issue is with one particular person, Ryan Tubridy?
No, it's not with one particular person. RTE wants it to be with one particular person. That's been their track record down through the years. You know, I'm sure that there was, and I'm going to say this, and it's perhaps I shouldn't say it, but I will say it. When Jerry Ryan passed away, a lot of doors closed, and a lot of people in RTE breathed a sigh of relief because Jerry had become that huge broadcaster they couldn't control. Ryan is not that type of individual. Ryan, I think, is being misled here on so many different levels. That was an interrogation yesterday that you wouldn't see in a police station.
Yeah.
And this thing about, you know, finish the question, answer the question, you know, is it yes or no? The guy was terrified. I was exhausted afterwards. My heart was beating, pounding. I don't know how he must have felt. But Ryan really needs now to step away from what he thinks is the responsive support that he feels he's surrounded by. He's not. He needs to come out. You got to remember, if I can say this, you know, taking over the Late Late Show in Ireland, there are tens of thousands of people who look to the presenter of the Late Late Show as the anointed one. We still live in a country like that. To take over the reins of the show that Gay Byrne created and made a huge success of is a very sacred cow. It's the holy grail of RTE and Irish broadcasting, whether we like it or not. So consequently, the money he was on, people accepted that he deserved the money he was on because he presented a great television show which culminated every Christmas.
It's exactly very interesting what you're saying, that they are trying to scapegoat them, because at the end of the day, that is what RTE are doing. Like, you know, they're a state body, 340 million annual budget, still making losses. D Forbes is going to ask for another 35 million.
And it did feel like key questions. But it did feel you wouldn't get that in a Garda station.
We still don't know.
It did feel yesterday that he was just punching continually for 6 hours. And like that, I was so exhausted watching it.
When truth matters, which is their punchline,
look, you know,
we're not getting it.
They're trying to scapegoat each other at this stage. But I think what underlies that is a presupposition that one side can win. I think both sides can lose here.
We said earlier on outside, everybody in RTE has thrown everybody else under the bus. And that is exactly what we saw there. And we still don't have answers to key questions. We still don't have the answer to the question, why was the demand for extra money made? And that is the key thing.
Listen,
and we don't know that.
We could keep talking about it all morning as well, and I'm sure we will hear from viewers as well. 0896 111 111. We would love to hear from you. Jack Horgan-Jones, you're hanging around for the news after this news coming up. Gareth O'Callaghan as well, broadcaster, great to have you with us. Thank you, and Orla Carmody, communications consultant.
Thank you all. Jack gets to talk about fake tan very shortly. Lots more still to come.
We compare 14 insurance quotes to get you the best deal. So choose chill and work smarter, not harder.
This morning we'll see scattered showers of rain or drizzle with sunshine occasionally breaking through, with highest temperatures of 14 to 18 degrees. And this afternoon showers will turn heavy and possibly thundery in Ulster. Highest temperatures of 16 to 19 degrees. Tonight then there will be clear spells and well scattered showers mainly in Ulster and in Munster, with lowest temperatures of 9 degrees. And that's your weather outlook.
Chill Insurance work harder so you can work smarter. We compare 14 quotes to get you the best deal.
Welcome back. Now, political reporter for the Irish Times, Jack Horgan-Jones. He has stayed with us to run through this morning's news stories, and I swear to God, we're going back to an Oireachtas Committee.
Back to Oireachtas.
And RTE.
Oh my God.
So this time it's with GAA Go, which is the other huge controversy really this summer.
Yeah, it's been going all summer, as you say, and even going back into the spring, going back to when there was a conflict over some of the Munster Hurling Championship games and some of the best games that I think people had seen for many a year ended up behind the paywall. Now, that was due due to a bit of a scheduling quirk, but you remember at the time Donal O'Cusack came out and basically called out RTE GAA Go for this, saying that, you know, it was a bridge too far and putting good games beyond the reach of fans, and it was something that became rapidly and heavily politicised. Micheál Martin, who's obviously very involved in the GAA, his son plays for Cork, came out and called it out. Leo Varadkar did similarly, and it just became this heavily controversial topic that I think has built to this head of steam. It's probably the lesser of the two controversies facing RTE and Oireachtas Committees this week, but nonetheless, it's led to this kind of thing where everyone's being pulled in, and there's
the national sport, and people want to be able to watch it.
People have a very strong...
And they have 4 channels to put it on.
And listen, at the end of the day, GAA Go, the matches are like, you're getting to, if you have GAA Go and you've got good broadband, you get to see any amount.
It's the second part of that, though, right?
It's fantastic. The problem is a lot of the matches were in Kerry, featuring David Clifford and Kerry, in areas where the broadband's rubbish.
They had one Kerry match on the television. Everything else was on GAA Go. And where my mum is from, there is no broadband. The broadband is gone, and it's a €12 game, and they can't see anything.
Exactly, and you know, big heavyweight clashes like Kerry and Tyrone being behind a paywall now. RT will say, and there is a lot of truth to this, that, you know, if it weren't behind the GAA Go paywall, it would have been behind the Sky paywall, it wouldn't existed. But you're right, there's that technological element to it as well, that not everyone has, A, the good broadband to stream it, and B, the capacity maybe to use the service. So it's just seen as putting a bit of a barrier between people and their GAA, and that's something that is just anathema to Irish people.
It's the fact that GAA are shareholders in it alongside RT. Kind of seems
Dee Forbes is still director of the company as well.
Listen, let us know what you make of that one as well. 0896 111 111. What would you like to hear with Dee Forbes?
Still director of the company.
As my understanding, she's still a director.
Maybe she'll turn up at the Oireachtas today for that.
I'm sure she'll get around to it.
Now, the Leaving Cert. So this is quite interesting. So an overhaul of the sex education. So I love this. That the first for 20 years, it aims to bring teaching and learning up to date with societal developments and equip students for living in today's world.
Yes.
Isn't that what education's meant to be about?
Yeah, so this is something that's done by the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, the NCCA, the body whose job it is basically to make sure that the learning materials and the curriculums across the country are up to date. And what they've said is that issues like LGBTQ+ issues and sex education and issues like consent should become part of the Leaving Cert curriculum. Now, not necessarily exam subjects. You're not going to be asked to take an exam, and once people hit the age of 18, they'll be able to withdraw themselves from it. But it is overall a kind of a modernisation, I suppose, of this. But the problem is that, as we have seen, particularly with junior cycle and issues around gender identity, this is something that can become very polarised very quickly. People can become quite radicalised, and what is a complex debate or a complex set of principles can be reduced really to a couple of very antagonistic talking points. So I think that's always the risk with something like this, that people kind of wade into this with agendas, and people can become radicalised, and it can become a very divisive moment. Whereas I think in reality, I think that most people, if they're to glance at this and to see the updating, they would say this is something.
If you look beyond the headlines,
exactly.
I think actually, if you read the actual article, it's just exactly bringing things up to today's world. Is there anything wrong with that? And particularly the fact that it's Leaving Cert, it's not junior cert or primary school level or whatever else.
They're trying to give people knowledge about their lives. I didn't know about my own cycle when I left. Like, literally didn't know a thing. They're trying to give people some. That's exactly what my cycle is all about. He learned a lot inside in school about women, didn't he? It's good. And he's married. He never does the tampon on, is that
anyway,
it? Yeah?
This is something you know all about as well. Fake handbills. Murren.
So apparently...
Me? Sorry, I'm still going. I'm still...
Sorry, Jack. Go on, tell us.
That's quite all right. Fake tan and heavy makeup on bedding and towels apparently cost the hotel industry £1.8 million per year. Lies. Yeah, laundries apparently throw away 224 tons of sheets and pillowcases.
I actually believe this.
Lies.
No way, this is definitely true. Like,
my favourite thing...
You're saying there's the worst things on sheets in hotels. Is fake tan.
Yeah.
Let's get out the blue light, my friends.
Yeah, my favourite thing about this is the fact that they've cited evidence from one hotelier who hosted a bodybuilding contest at which competitors covered themselves in fake tan. Is it not baby oil?
And fake tan. So that mixed together is
that
cement.
mesh.
Yeah,
Like, that's
exactly.
different. That's not just fake tan.
Yeah, just these slippery, muscular guys ruining hotel rooms.
Now, I would say, you know, sometimes you put on your developer tan, and you've probably seen it, you've definitely seen it, where there's an outline of a body, it looks like someone died in the bed the night before. But it comes out in the wash.
Does it, though?
It does.
Like, some of the heavy-duty tans out there, you don't even know what's in them. But
You know, when
people
fellas
look at
sweat
mahogany.
in bed, and the same thing happens. It's the same as kind of fake tan. You're sweating it off. You just see it more with the fake tan.
Again, people, if you're watching this morning, can you get the fake tan out of your sheets?
Have you seen Donegal Cullen's sheets when you were rooming together? Was that just an outline, was it?
He wasn't allowed
Donegal,
to.
I'm sorry. We didn't mean to bring you into this. That's terrible.
Yeah, let us know. Is this a problem? But yeah, like, it's crazy to think hotels are actually hating when they're seeing these bodybuilding competitions come that they're going to have to throw out all the sheets. Jack Horgan-Jones. Sorry for bringing you into this morning.
That's quite all right.
From the Irish Times.
The news has been so serious. It's nice to have a laugh.
Alan,
Thanks,
speaking of baby oil and fake tan, tell us more.
It's the first time I've ever seen Jack Horgan-Jones full head blushed. His full head blushed.
It's developing.
Now, a marine heat wave off the Irish coast has recently raised sea temperatures by 4 degrees. Good news for swimmers, but we're going to be discussing the impact of this after the break.
Now, if you managed to get to page 4 in any of the papers, you may have noticed the sea is getting that bit warmer than usual, and that is because Ireland is going through a marine heat wave.
Now, here to explain what that means is scientist Dr. Ruth Freeman. Good morning to you,
Good
Ruth.
morning.
How are you? I mean, let's talk about global warming in a full context of it. Europe is the fastest growing continent heat-wise. We had the hottest day ever on record in the world last week, and now we're having this marine heat wave. When you're hearing all these things, do you start panicking once again and going, this is a situation that is getting out of control?
Yeah, I mean, that's what the head of the UN, Antonio Guterres, said last week. He said we are now seeing runaway climate change. So, I mean, this is information that scientists have been sharing for decades. I mean, the first paper probably looking at global warming was in about 1910. So since then, scientists have known that fossil fuel burning would heat our atmosphere. And I think it's really important because you can think about a degree or two here and there. Sure, that doesn't make any difference. Yeah. Like in Ireland, we'd have -5 in the winter and we go up to the mid-20s. But you need to sort of think about the Earth almost like your own body. And once your temperature goes up by 1 degree, you're not feeling great. And once it goes up by 2, you really can't function. So it's important that we start to think about these increases in temperature more like that.
So how important was it then last week that we hit that milestone, that was the hottest day ever on Earth?
Well, I mean, it's terrible. Obviously, it's very worrying. And in fact, that record that was set on Tuesday was beaten on Wednesday.
Was it?
And in fact, last week we had the 7 hottest days on record altogether. And while we only have records going back a few hundred years, we can look at tree rings and we can see that actually we haven't seen these kind of temperatures on Earth since the last kind of interglacial period between 2 ice ages hundreds of thousands of years ago. So these are exceptionally high temperatures.
Wow. So how frustrating for you is it whenever, for the last 3 weeks, all we have discussed is RTE scandal and paychecks and whatever else, when there's fin whales washing up on Kerry beaches, there is flooding in Tralee, we're seeing crazy weather extremes all over the world.
Absolutely.
But it's not getting the attention probably that really it deserves.
Yeah, I mean, we have like 60,000 Europeans died because of heat-related issues last year. We have 100 million Americans now living in what they're calling a heat belt, which may become unsustainable. As you say, we have parts of the States underwater, we have wildfires. And I think the public actually are really concerned about this. So 75% of the public want more action, they want fair action, they want legislation. So, you know, we need to see things like the nature restoration law that's going through the EU today be passed. We need to see that be implemented because what people want are solutions.
So if the public are doing it and they're wanting to do it, who's not doing it?
I mean, I think it's very difficult to know. I mean, I feel a lot of it comes down to fairness, and it's a really innate human characteristic. I mean, even if you think about the RTE issue, lack of fairness really bothers people in general. And I think, you know, we look at this global issue and we say, well, so-and-so is doing that. why should I do this? You know, that country's still burning coal. Why should we stop? But the reality is, we all have to take action here. We do have to take individual action, even though that's not going to solve it on its own. And we have to demand
and like
political
if we all
action.
do one small little thing that we even think won't make an impact, if everybody just does that one small little thing. Can I ask you about the marine heat wave we're having? What is a marine heat wave?
So a marine heat wave is a relatively new thing to science. We've only really started looking at them in the last couple of decades, but it's when you get an extreme and unusual heat event in the ocean for more than 5 days. So we see where the temperature just goes up quite suddenly, maybe by 4 or 5, even up to 7, 10 degrees, quite quickly, maybe in an area of a couple of 100 kilometres, but they can spread. So possibly the most famous one actually was in the Gulf of Alaska about 10 years ago. It was called the blob by scientists because it ended up really killing everything inside it. It started at about 300 or 400 kilometres wide. The temperature went up by 5 to 6 degrees, but it spread then to about 3,000 kilometres, and it persisted for 3 years. So in that time, really, plankton crashed, then krill populations crashed, these little shrimp that a lot of animals feed on. A billion seabirds died in that space, and whale births dropped dramatically. So the ecosystem was massively damaged by this heating.
So what is it about Ireland, though, that is creating this heat wave? Like, what are we doing in this country or even in Europe that we are so far accelerating as opposed to the rest of the world?
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, what happens in the ocean is global. So it's not that we are necessarily doing something here that's causing the particular marine heat wave in the North Atlantic, which we're seeing right now. So we're seeing temperatures, they're the hottest they've been for over 170 years. They're up. We now have an average temperature in some parts of the UK of 20 degrees in the sea. This has happened quite quickly. And, you know, I mean, it probably a number of reasons. The ocean is absorbing 90% of the heat from global warming.
Wow.
So if you think about it, so when we think about all that warming, the ocean has been really protecting us. But the ocean is absorbing as much energy as 7 atomic bombs going off every second.
And can we do anything to help this marine heat wave?
I mean, I think one of the things that we can do is look at our marine protected areas. So at the moment, Ireland has one of the lowest levels of marine protected areas for any maritime nation.
Right.
Now, we have ambitions to get...
What's
so basically, marine protected areas where you basically allow only activity that's not going to damage biodiversity to happen. So you minimise the amount of fishing in certain areas, you minimise things like wind farms in certain areas.
So no wind farms then, even though that could...
No, not none. You just protect certain areas that have particular, you know, very biodiverse areas. You decide, well, we won't do development there. We'll pick certain areas for development and we'll protect certain areas. So it's about making choices around particular areas and allow nature to kind of rewild in those areas, because that actually helps the ocean to capture more carbon and be more resilient. So we need to do that. And of course, we just need to join in the kind of global commitments that we've made through COP and actually meet our emissions reduction targets.
Actually do it. It is really quite frightening. Dr. Ruth Freeman, Director of Science for Society, thank you so much for coming in and discuss that as well. We would love to get your opinion on that, if you're doing your bit or if you get frustrated when you see...
Just even knowing what to do sometimes, you know.
And you see whales washing up. It is quite scary. Now, we are going to be continuing that discussion after 8 o'clock. We're going to have tips on how to identify different species of jellyfish and what to do if you get stung. Go back to...
No pee involved.
Come back to us after the break.
Hello, welcome back to Ireland Day. And this hour, it's very different from the last hour, right?
Sure.
We're talking celebrity cooking. Oh, we are doing climate change again. And controversial TikTok filters, of which I cannot take a photo. We're like, how do I take that photo?
Speaking about that
I feel like my mother.
Couple of minutes. Coming up very shortly, a former boxing champ turned couch potato. He loved that. Chris Eubank talks Gogglebox, the art of being a gentleman and going for gold on his latest telly project.
We'll also be speaking to Kevin McGahern. He's going to be dropping by for a chat after 9 o'clock.
Plus, too good to be true, we're going to hear how TikTok filters could be playing havoc with our brains.
Yeah, can't work them, so we're okay. Alan, what have you got coming up?
Well, we're continuing that discussion about climate change and the rising sea temperatures. And here to explain the influx of, if you may have seen them, jellyfish around our waters. Keelan Dunn from Seahorse Aquariums. Good morning to you. Why are we seeing an increase in jellyfish around Ireland at the moment?
Now, it is the season for them, but things are getting hotter. So jellyfish like warm conditions.
Right.
So the season is longer. So the Irish jellyfish are here for longer, but also we're now bringing in tropical jellyfish.
Okay.
All because of warm temperatures.
All because, and this is a jellyfish here. What kind of jellyfish is this?
Compass jellyfish. If you look at it from the top, it looks like a lovely compass. Yeah, perfect there. And then on the left end, you've got a lovely blue jellyfish. See them down the bottom there? So all some of the exotic species that we're finding around Ireland when we get into the water.
Well, we're going to be chatting about these jellyfish a little later on. Have you ever been stung, lads? Have you ever got a sting from a jellyfish?
I have actually been stung, yeah. It's not very pleasant at all.
Very dexterous. You can go like this, can't you?
Those ones look lovely. Very friendly little pets for the house. Thank you very much, Alan and Keelan. We'll be chatting to you later on.
Did you use the friends trick?
No, I did
Get rid of
not.
the stinger?
No.
We compare 14 insurance quotes to get you the best deal. So choose chill and work smarter, not harder.
This morning we'll see scattered showers of rain or drizzle with sunshine occasionally breaking through with highest temperatures of 14 to 18 degrees. And this afternoon showers will turn heavy and possibly thundery in Ulster. Highest temperatures of 16 to 19 degrees. Tonight then there will be clear spells and well scattered showers mainly in Ulster and in Munster with lowest temperatures of 9 degrees. And that's your weather outlook.
Chill Insurance work harder so you can work smarter. We compare 14 quotes to get you the best deal.
Now it's time to take a look at this morning's papers. There's one story dominating the headlines, as you would expect. We'll start with the Irish Times. It goes with Tubridy accuses RT of misleading the public on payments saga. Ryan Tubridy and his agent Noel Kelly accused RT of giving false and misleading accounts of the star's payments at two Oireachtas committees yesterday.
The Examiner leads with, this is not the Ryan Tubridy scandal, this is the RTE scandal. The former Late Late Show presenter has hit back at being made the poster boy for RTE's failures.
Touch and go if I'm to keep my job as the top story on the Daily Mail. The paper claims Ryan Tubridy will learn by the end of the month whether he has a future at RTE.
The Mirror goes with Tubbs, the fight back. RTE boss Kevin McGahern has said Tubridy won't be gone by the end of the week after the presenter said it multiple times yesterday.
The Sun leads with the untruth hurts.
The Star leads with All-Out War.
The Herald goes with broadcast away. Director General Kevin Backhurst of RTE told the Herald that moving the broadcaster from its Donnybrook campus could be considered.
Yes, new RTE boss opens door to sale of Montrose. That's the front page of the Irish Independent. The paper tells how RTE could sell its Dublin 4 campus as part of plans to overhaul the crisis-hit broadcaster as Mr Backhurst deals with the fallout from the Ryan Tubridy secret payments. And we did ask for a lot of texts in on that as well. And Kevin Backhurst did kind of say, listen, I won't be making a decision on Ryan Tubridy when he'll be back. I'll gauge the opinion of the people in RT and, of course, the listeners.
See, that's the thing. I mean, will people work with him? Will his old team want to work with him again? That's what you need. You need the backing of the staff.
Well, Zara King was there yesterday on the RTE campus talking to staff. Some people were very upset. This was on the news on Virgin Media last night. And some people were like, we want him back.
Yeah, but Gareth Callaghan was on with us earlier on saying there's absolute anger out there as well. Like he's upset a lot of people.
After yesterday's performance.
Well, after yesterday and over the last couple. So there's really a big split. And even in the texts, it's the exact same. Brenda said, I was an avid listener to Tubridy, but yesterday's lack of contrition, lack of taking responsibility and portraying lack of knowledge stinks. I won't be listening or watching him again.
Whereas Mike says, it's awful what's happening to Ryan after yesterday. I genuinely believe he had no idea. His agent was doing his job, getting the best deal for his client, and that is what is business. Well, if someone gets you more money, no one's saying no to more money.
I don't think that was the point. And he kept saying yesterday the one thing that he did fail to do was make comment on when the underdeclaring of his salary was made on the newspapers.
Listen, he kept also saying, listen, I took a 20% pay cut, but just then another side deal was set up miraculously by RTE at the exact same time.
Yeah.
you know, listen.
So that pay cut wouldn't be as harsh.
But
Alan said it's not just
situation.
Team Ryan versus Team RTE. One team he didn't mention was the licence payers. We are the people forced to pay any kind of fee to fund obscene salaries and 61 car allowances to staff in RTE. Until the salaries and allowances to the elite in RTE are cut, there is no hope of faith being restored in the organisation.
Yep, and we would love to see how public money is being spent in organisations across the country. I would absolutely
say it
love
again,
to see
Muireann.
that.
HSE. Go on, say it.
What? RTE now HSE. I am fascinated.
State
Where is the
bodies
money
where the spending
going
is.
in the HSE? One of the biggest per capita in the world on a health budget. And we've got such a bad health system. And I think that is so important. And homeless crisis and people can't afford to buy houses.
Like
and we're a rich
serious
country.
problems out there, including this.
Fake
like
tan.
Poor hotels out there having to shell out 1.8 million a year
Poor hotels.
to wash their sheets because
jacking up their prices. Well, do you know what? The fake tan to Taylor Swift.
people
That's what they're doing it for.
putting fake tan on, and all of a sudden the sheets are ruined and they have to throw them out. And Sharon says, every Thursday without my fail, my daughter puts on liters of tan.
Liters of tan.
She comes out looking orange and her bed sheets are ruined. I'm wrecked washing them all the time.
You know, when teenagers, I thought that it would stop, like they'd learn from our mistakes because they're so good at putting on makeup and everything now. But I see teenagers now, I'm like, they even put on more fake tan than we did when we were teenagers.
Claire says, I run a B&B and I completely agree with bringing in a tan tax. The tan tax. Whenever I get a group of young girls, the sheets and towels are destroyed.
There you have it, exactly.
There you go.
And David says, my wife's side of the bed is a completely different colour to mine. Her fake tan is staying the sheets over the years. Every time she makes the bed, she puts the tan side of the sheet on my side. I feel disgusting. Well, make the bed, David. Then you can put it on whatever side you want. It's grand.
0896 111 111. Send in your text messages, particularly on the tanning. We have give us a bit of a laugh and everything.
Worst things happen in hotels.
Now, coming up after the break, former professional boxer Chris Eubank is going to talk swapping boxing gloves for oven mitts. Yes, you heard that right. We'll see you back here in a few. Good morning, you're very welcome back to the show. Now, from boxing to cooking, our next guest, well, he's done it all.
He really has done it all. Joining us now to discuss his career, it is former boxer Chris Eubank. Good morning, Chris. How are you?
Good morning, good morning.
Oh,
he said he's done it all.
Oh, we're going to enjoy this today. Chris, we were only talking and this wasn't surprising us. When we heard the name Chris Eubanks and Wimbledon, we were like, yeah, I could see Chris Eubank just going, I'm going to become a tennis player now. How are you enjoying the confusion between you and the tennis champion, Chris Eubanks?
Well, let's see. I've looked at him and he looks like he's going to the top. And it's a shame I only actually learned of his wonderful rise a few days ago. Yes, but a namesake, and I think I've listened to him rather than watch him play. I've listened to him, and he sounds like a champion.
He absolutely does. Yeah. A talented competitor, just like his namesake, Chris Eubank, that we're talking to today. Because, of course, we're talking about you've done everything, but everybody will remember you for being the former middleweight champion. And in Ireland, of course, there was maybe the memories you maybe don't enjoy against, obviously, our own Steve Collins. But boxing was such a huge part of your life. And I'm really interested, like, how did you get into boxing? Where did that start for you?
It started with my brothers. I wanted to win respect from them. And it seemed to me that the only way I could get that respect is if I was able to... first, be able to speak. Second, be able to pronunciate my words correctly. Third, to not use any bad language, always be a gentleman. But you had to be able to fight. And so I took up boxing. And I thought, well, at 14, I'm going to be a world champion. And I said it. No one said, you're an idiot. You're never going to be world champion. And so I just kept on believing it. And 10 years later, I was world champion. Yes.
It's sort of, you set yourself goals and you achieve them. And when you talk about your speech there, that is a huge part of your life.
Well, if you can't communicate, then people don't know who you are. And if you're going to be a champion, then you should prepare for the questions that will come with the position. One has to have the correct attitude for the job. And that attitude isn't just in delivering the goods, it's in communicating your point of view. And the point of view is always that you're a gentleman. We always follow the uniform of the Queen. Always be a gentleman, always be a lady. And I followed it, and it worked. And it does work.
And you were an incredible champion. You know, you were able to go toe-to-toe with the absolute best. And you also spoke about being a gentleman there as one of the main things. You see boxing nowadays, there's a lot of influencers involved in it. There's a lot of shady characters in boxing. And maybe it's lost the gentleman. How does it compare to your day?
Well, it's the same. I mean, as I point out to young fighters, I was with one of your famous fighters and my friend, Gary, Mr. O'Sullivan, Spike O'Sullivan, and we were talking about the day, back in the day, and how it was, and how, you know, fighters really had to have skill, had to live the life, and really did not use bad language like is used today. And I think that old school teaching is coming back. Yes.
Well, that's
and my best.
Because what you cultivated, obviously you were seen as this eccentric figure in boxing because you were like something out of a Victorian romance novel, how you carried yourself, how you dressed yourself. It was a performance, but also it was you. Like, this is who you are as a person. And when you were retiring, when you decided to retire back in 1998, did your persona, like that sort of boxing persona that you had, did that sort of protect you from sort of what was going on with kind of your job being gone? Or did you still feel that sense of loss that sports people feel when they stop doing what they love?
No, see, if you're always honest in what you do, in how you speak, and how you carry on in your vocation, then you'll always be respected, and you'll always respect yourself. So, you know, all I was honest. I had taken I'd done my winning. I'd won my championships. I had defended it. The most important, though, is that I did my losing, but it's how I lost. I say to people today, don't look so much at my wins, but look at my losses. Look at how I handled the losses. That shows whether a person is a gentleman. Because a lot of these fighters today, they're just looking for the money and the belts, not understanding that it's the hearts of the people that you're really after. That's the championship belt you want. And that's what I teach. And no one taught that better than Queen Elizabeth II. I followed her example of being always a gentleman, or a lady in her case. And it got me to the top. It works. And it's so sad that people don't follow her example. 70 years on the throne and 70 years of perfect behavior. Perfect. Beautiful behavior for us to follow. And it seems everyone calls me eccentric, but then I'm only following the beacon that the Queen was.
Oh, we've been calling her eccentric all this time without having a clue. All the corgis following her around the place back in her day.
We have to ask you then, because you've taken part in so many, in transitioning from boxing to, I suppose, real life, and you've taken part in Big Brother, and you've done I'm a Celebrity. You spoke there about winning the hearts of fans, and I think something that you did in one of the shows that you took part in on Channel 4, Scared of the Dark, you showed your vulnerable side. You spoke about your son Sebastian, who unfortunately passed away a number of years ago. And I'm sure it must have been so difficult, but so many people, I think, really related to you in it. Tell us, like, what was Sebastian like?
He was an honest, you see, I'm talking about heart now, because you have the king, which is the heart, and you have the brain, which is the advisor. He was all heart, he was all king. And, you know, so I don't mourn my son. You know, if I teared up just there when you mentioned his name, it's because I miss him. I miss him, his physical presence. but his spiritual presence is with me, as is every family member who loses a loved one. The person becomes you. They look at the world through your eyes because the windows of the soul are the eyes. So he's in the spirit world, so he's me. And I give him tribute every day because I carry him. So I have to walk in his law. And the law is being a gentleman, being someone who protects and serves the people, which is what he did.
It's really lovely to see you talk about him and to have the strength to be able to talk about a child being gone like that, Chris. So thank you so much for doing that and taking the time. And you let us into your world an awful lot of the time. That's a very sad part of it. But also, we mentioned the reality TV shows that you do.
Fun side of it too.
The fun side and the getting people chatting side. Sometimes you go into these going, what am I doing this for?
I'm doing it because I love having fun.
Okay.
Let me tell you, when they talk about these game shows, whether it's I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, or any of these shows you would go in scared of the dark, it's all fun because nothing compares to fighting another man. You see, you have to be honest to fight another man. Everything is on the line. You're showing your soul. You're showing how you were brought up. You're showing whether you are a childlike person inside, or whether you are an upstanding member of the community. And you get to reflect what your parents taught you, which is why I do not use bad language, which is why I practice words and pronunciating words and using words so that I can show that my parents taught me well. Everybody represents their parents. So if someone's swearing, if someone's using lewd language, that is a poor reflection of their parents. And I don't understand it because sponsors always shy away from people who use bad language. Yeah. And they're hanging themselves, as I was saying in the Scared of the Dark show, they're hanging themselves by using bad language because no sponsor really wants to actually hire someone who is foul-mouthed. And I don't understand it. Again, we have the Queen Elizabeth II, as our beacon for how to behave.
Well, we know that the kitchen is a fairly stressful place. And of course, you're involved in the new show at the moment, Cooking with the Stars. How did you hold your cool on that one? Are you any good in the kitchen?
I'm good at being funny. And I know I'm being funny because but I'm just following what my heart is saying. Now, the reason why I'm funny in the show, I believe, is because I have no idea what I'm doing. But I'm trying to make it look as though I know what I'm doing. You see these dishes, what I make, it is shameful. I'm dreading how I look actually putting these things together, because in terms of presentation, oh my goodness, it is a mess. But I look doing it. You see, look.
Ever the showman.
Look at the panache with which you hold plates. My God, you look like you walked out of Vogue. I don't care what it tastes like. It looks good.
Exactly. Don't sell fish. Always sell your personality. Always show yourself to be charismatic, or what they call eccentric. Well, it's just charisma. Just entertainment.
There is no better man in the world than yourself in doing that, Chris Eubank. Listen, it's an absolute pleasure to talk to you this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you
so much. You can watch Cooking with the Stars. It's on Tuesday at 9 on Virgin Media 1. You can catch up, of course, on Virgin Media Player.
Isn't he just incredible this time of the morning?
I feel really bad for my mum for when I curse. It's a really bad reflection on you, Mary. Right.
We compare 14 insurance quotes to get you the best deal. So choose chill and work smarter, not harder.
This morning we'll see scattered showers of rain or drizzle with sunshine occasionally breaking through, with highest temperatures of 14 to 18 degrees. And this afternoon showers will turn heavy and possibly thundery in Ulster. Highest temperatures of 16 to 19 degrees. Tonight then there will be clear spells and well scattered showers mainly in Ulster and in Munster, with lowest temperatures of 9 degrees. And that's your weather outlook.
Chill Insurance work harder so you can work smarter. We compare 14 quotes to get you the best deal.
You're very welcome back. Now, earlier in the show, we discussed Ireland's marine heatwave, and it is no coincidence that with the rise in sea temperatures, we've also seen an increase in the amount of jellyfish in our waters.
Now, here with some squishy pals to tell us more and to give us some tips on how to stay safe in the sea is marine biologist Keelan Dunn. Good morning to you, Keelan.
Hey, Keelan.
And we were talking about the rise in sea temperatures and what's happening at the moment. So how is that affecting sea life here in Ireland?
Essentially, I mean, if you look at jellyfish, winter time they stay deep. Now our summer season is getting longer, temperatures are getting warmer, so jellyfish have a longer time to be around. But on top of that, because the temperatures are getting warmer, some of our cousins from the Mediterranean that never came to Ireland before are now starting to be able to make the journey.
Because the waters are warmer.
Because it's similar to where they come from.
Okay, so because you have a couple of different jellyfish here at the moment as well. What are these two, sorry, that you have here?
So we've got on the left here, if you look at this guy, beautiful looking jellyfish. This is the compass. So if you look at it there, you'll see it looks like a compass.
Is he Irish? No,
he is Irish, but the numbers of the compass jellyfish have been increasing. So this is an Irish jellyfish.
And what's the blue one then over at the side here then as well?
Here,
if we get this one here as well.
Is a blue jellyfish.
Okay, I'll turn him around a bit.
Yeah, I can.
Move there.
You're not to touch them with your fingers, but I can touch them with my little seam. Beautiful fish.
But so, and even the likes of the lion's mane jellyfish, like, it's the biggest jellyfish in the world?
It's the biggest jellyfish. So the actual jellyfish itself is about 1 metre long, but the tentacles of the jellyfish can be the length of a bus. So you might see the jellyfish, but you have no chance of seeing the tentacles.
Yeah,
and it's the tentacles that do the damage.
That's what stings you, because you see this
Look
here.
Look at the size of it.
Yeah, that's a coffee cup on top of that. That was down in Clare last week.
That was in Clare?
Yeah, imagine
stung by that?
Imagine him getting a hold of you. He has tentacles literally the size of a bus, and on each tentacle at the end of it there's a little bit of poison. And it's not that he comes after you, it's just that you rub off him. It's like a nettle. You just touch a nettle and you get stung.
And they're in Irish waters now.
Yeah.
That size?
Massively that size, yeah.
But say you see this here and that looks quite small, but you said even this would have tentacles maybe the size of a van.
Exactly, and
seriously, it's just saying, yeah, like that, the tentacles could be nearly the size of a van. And so that you're seeing this and you're going, oh, it's over there, I won't go near it, but the tentacles could still sting you.
You could be swimming through the tentacles, and you have, on a lion's mane, you have 2,000 tentacles, and on each tentacle you might have 1,000 little drops of poison. So as you get caught in that, each little bit of poison will go into your skin, and that's the problem. That's what does the damage.
I have to ask, if you do get stung by a jellyfish, is there a recommended way of doing it?
Well, what you don't do, the big question,
pee on each other.
Don't pee on each other. We're not recommending that, right? Okay. What you do, first of all, is not to panic. The jellyfish in Ireland don't kill you. They can sting you and it can be bad, but they won't kill you. So what you need to do is get out of the water. You need to calm down. You need to wash off the sting. Think of it like a splinter.
Okay.
You don't want to push it in any further, right? So you want to just wash it off with salty water and then go home, put ice on it, and everything should be okay.
Okay,
right.
Very good. Good advice. Now, we have seen the likes of lobsters in Ireland, huge industry. But with this warm water, there's a lot, as this Japanese seaweed, we have cuttlefish, and even Spanish octopus coming in, eating the lobsters. Is this all due to climate change and the warmer water?
The water is 4 degrees warmer.
4 degrees?
At the moment than it should be. I mean, to give you an example, this is a native Irish coral off the west coast of Ireland. If the temperature increases 1 degree, this coral can potentially die. So 4 degrees is something we've never experienced before. And all of a sudden, we're starting to find tropical cousins coming to Ireland. You know, you mentioned the Spanish octopus. You've got this seaweed, it's a Japanese seaweed, which is killing the native Irish seaweed. You've got mussels, right? 2 mussels here. On the right there, we have the Irish mussel that we love to eat.
Yeah.
This is the zebra mussel. It's got little stripes like a zebra. So these guys have come in. They never would have survived before, but now things are hotter.
They are.
And are the Irish the bigger mussel, which I suppose we export all over the world as well, and people enjoy eating here now. Are they struggling in the hotter water?
These are struggling, and this is the problem. It's not just that new guys are coming in, it's the existing guys are struggling. I mean, these are examples here of existing guys that we have around the Irish coast, and certain species are moving north. Think of a forest fire, okay?
Yeah.
If you're a deer, you can run away from the fire, but if you're a tree, you can't. So if you're some of these examples like mussels and shellfish, They're stuck.
Oh, yeah. They can't move.
They can't move, and they're starting to really, really get stressed. Some of them are dying. Some of them are really struggling. This one here, not many people know we have a native Irish sponge. So that's actually a sponge that grows off the Irish coast. This lovely little red one here, if we can get a zoom on that. Yeah, it's an anemone, an Irish anemone, right? But it actually is the same family as a jellyfish. So at the end of it, it's got stinging cells. So if I put my finger in, beautiful.
Don't do that. Don't sting for us. Don't do that.
Take one for the team. Look, yeah, look at that. My finger is stuck. And
it's stuck to it.
So what it's done, if I was a small fish, it would eat me. So it's got lovely flowers that attracts you in, tempts you in. Look, let me go.
But then it would eat the fish.
Then it would eat the fish, and that's how it survives.
Can I ask you, are any of this marine life adapting at all to these higher temperatures? Or will they die out?
The answer is, Alan, we don't know.
You don't know.
We don't know. So we're trying to sort of find out as we go. We know that the more sensitive species, like corals, are going to struggle. But some of the other species that might be more tolerant. So this is uncharted territory. We literally don't know what's happening.
It really is frightening, particularly all this talk or whatever else. And our own native sea life, which is such a big part of our country as well. Listen, we do have to give you a big shout out. Whatever about you, to your mum, Evelyn, as well, is that she just competed. How big a cycle did you just do? You raised over 150,000 euro.
150,000 for the Irish Hospice Foundation and the night nurses. An amazing charity, and amazing people.
There you are.
There you go. That's my brother Murray in Scotland. Myself and my mother in her 80th year, would you believe? She cycled 530 kilometres from Prague to Vienna.
Congratulations, sir. What's your mother's name?
Evelyn.
What an absolute champion.
And you know what she does? One last point. She cycles on her birthday in January every year. She cycles the miles, not kilometres, of her years. And wait for it. During COVID, there was a 5K limit. And she lives in Portmarnock, and she'd done 34 loops of Portmarnock in the rain on her own, just so she wouldn't break her record.
Oh, it's amazing. Well done, Evelyn, and well done. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much from Seahorse Aquariums. We would love to get your feelings on this, how frightening it is. 0896 111 111. Now we're going to be looking at TikTok filters and the impact they have on our own self-esteem.
One to the other. There we go.
I should not be allowed to say this because it took me how long to try to get this thing open earlier on? TikTok AI filters are on the rise and are more realistic than ever. But today we're asking, what effect do they have on our little brains?
So here to discuss this, neuroscientist and health psychologist, Dr. Sabina Brennan. Good morning to you,
Good morning.
Sabina.
How are you?
Thank you so much for coming in and talking all things AI and filters, which are gone to a whole new level, particularly on TikTok at the minute. What impact do they have? Like, how do these beauty filters work?
Well, it's more about how AI works, which is kind of exciting. And as you said, they've just gone to this whole other level from when you used to get bunny ears or a little funny nose. Now, what's amazing, because for this piece, I tried it out myself, what it does to your face is incredible. So the technology itself is absolutely incredible. So AI tries to simulate what the human brain can do. And the human brain sort of predicts what reality is like. So AI, it tries to do that. And the way it's trained to do that is through a thing called machine learning. Mm-hmm. So in the case of these TikTok filters, the bold glamour filter, for example, they're feed in tons and tons and tons of information about faces, pictures of faces, images of faces, etc. And over time, what can happen is then the machine learns to make predictions itself without having been taught what to do. Okay. So once you have sufficient data, it can make predictions and decisions.
Of what you want to have.
Of what the ideal face should look like according to the film.
So basically, Megan Fox, Kim Kardashian, there's like 5 faces in the world. Let's have a look. Do we have a picture of Tommy?
Who's that behind me? My goodness.
Now, you're going to get
Megan Fox is on the show.
It gets worse. You're going to get more horrified because I think we've got a picture. Like, Tommy looks like Tommy, which is really depressing. Don't. He's been sitting there going, I don't see any difference all day. Whereas for me, I think,
you look so much better in real life.
Oh,
in real life, I thought you were saying, you can't say.
Tommy's like, why can't I look at that one every morning?
Oh, no.
I look like a Japanese sex doll. No. My God.
Yeah, that's not what we need first thing in the morning to wake people up, is it, Selena?
It's so plastic. I tried it yesterday and I got these huge lips. So.
Is this not quite frightening, though? Because we're seeing now AI that can actually, it can follow you in videos. So
I know, that's really impressive.
Young people are using, not young people, lots of influencers.
Loads of people
are using these filters, and when they see an actual picture of themselves in the mirror or on their phone and it's not with a filter, they're quite scared. So I
get scared when I look in the mirror every morning, but you know, that's kind of.
But they talk about this body dysmorphia.
Yeah, no. I'm jesting there really when I suppose the thing about it is there's people are suggesting that you can fool your brain into thinking that's what you actually look like. And that's a real concern, so that then when you see yourself, you know, there's this real shock to the system. But in order for that to happen, you would have to be using them all of the time, which is what some influencers are doing. And then you get to a stage.
A lot of people are doing, they'll go on TikTok and do lives for like 3 hours, hoping to get those numbers, right? So they're looking at that.
Yes.
Continually. It's changing brain chemistry.
Well, basically what it's doing is your brain, AI operates the same way as your brain does. So basically, your brain is a prediction machine, right? That's how we navigate the world. It has got to learn from experience so that we know how to behave in any circumstance, right? So your brain does that from past experience, but also it's constantly taking in new information, okay? So the way prediction processing works, which is a theoretical framework in neuroscience to explain how the brain works, and it's very like how AI works, is your brain predicts what you're going to see in your face from past experience, but then it tries to match that with this actual sensory signal that's coming in through your eyes and your ears and whatever. So if there's a difference between the two, there's what's called a prediction error. So the brain adjusts its next prediction. So if, as you just said there, someone keeps seeing this image of this is what your face looks like, potentially, this hasn't been tested scientifically, but it's plausible. Potentially, your brain could actually identify that as a prediction error, and when you look at yourself for real.
Yes.
So, that's a problem for your own brain. My big issue with it is that a lot of young people follow influencers online and see them with these bold glamour faces on and think, I want to look like that.
Yeah.
And I know in France that they're actually bringing in regulations that say that if you do put up a picture like that, you have to say you're using a filter.
Yeah.
Do we need to bring something like that into Ireland?
I do think, well, actually, I think we need to go further than that. I think we need to regulate, you know, what AI is actually doing, because it's capable of so much. You can't buy medicine, you can't buy toys for kids that haven't been tested before they're unleashed on society. But what social media, what those things can do can dramatically change, and particularly on a teenage brain. The teenage brain is going through a period of considerable restructuring and development. And so teenagers actually, we tend to think teenagers are a bit dramatic and all the rest, but their brain actually experience deeper emotions. So they're at a big risk. Like you and I might get depressed looking in the mirror at what we actually look like without makeup or whatever. They're going to experience that at a much more heightened level, which is really concerning because you can then move into suicide ideation, depression, all those kind of things.
And we know from Meta's own research, they're like, we're giving people eating disorders from what we're doing inside here. It is very real. We'd love to know what you think if your kids are on these things, and always have a filter on what's going on. 0896 111 111, because it's the wild west at this stage. And does it scare
you when you see that filter that we just saw as well?
Dr. Sabina Brennan, neuroscientist and health psychologist, thank you so much for being with us. Perfect, Tommy Bowe. And this wreck of the Hespers will be back with you very shortly. We'll talk to you in a minute on our.
You want to come back? You are very welcome back to the show. On the final hour, we have got a funny man, a bit of fashion and something fishy in the kitchen. There you go. He's a laugh a minute. On the way, comedian Kevin McGahern talks touring in his latest show. We've also got something going out in the catwalk. Myrne, what have we got coming up?
Hello. In the catwalk, Mandy Mara is here with some laid-back looks, Mandy. Is that what we're doing?
Because I just feel this is the time of year where we are kind of in a holiday mode, I suppose. Yes. And we all love casual fashion. I know that's what I live in all the time. So I just think the beautiful pieces that we have here this morning, beautiful casual outfits, but also as well as that pieces that would be easy to pack up in a suitcase and head off on holidays.
Absolutely. And kimonos are definitely having a moment. They always do this time of year, but it's lovely to have because they go as a beach throw and everything.
Absolutely. And you can wear them at night or daytime or whatever you want.
Sure, we'll talk to you in just a little while. Our secret queen over here. Now it's to Alan in the kitchen. Alan, what's going on?
Thanks, Myrne. Yes, I'm just sweating some onions. Is that the right term?
We're just shouting abuse.
Sweating some onions here. Jack O'Keefe's going to be filling our bellies. Well, now with the amount of fish you brought in, that would just feed Tommy.
Stop.
Never mind.
The fish has feelings too, Ellen.
Seriously, Tommy, look at that. Tommy would eat twice.
We're doing our bit to save the ocean.
Yeah, we are, yeah. We're trimming down.
What are you making for us?
A lovely fish curry. Delicious, coconutty, a little bit spicy, but nice and creamy, delicious. I'm going to show you how to make the sauce, and I'm going to show you a really easy technique to cook fish on its skin.
It's really going to be a vegetable curry, isn't it? With
pretty
that
much.
Amount of fish.
Pretty much, yeah.
Lots of onions.
Yeah,
okay, we're still looking forward to that. It's coming up a little later on.
We compare 14 insurance quotes to get you the best deal. So choose chill and work smarter, not harder.
This morning we'll see scattered showers of rain or drizzle with sunshine occasionally breaking through with highest temperatures of 14 to 18 degrees. And this afternoon showers will turn heavy and possibly thundery in Ulster. Highest temperatures of 16 to 19 degrees. Tonight then there will be clear spells and well scattered showers mainly in Ulster and in Munster with lowest temperatures of 9 degrees. And that's your weather outlook.
Chill Insurance work harder so you can work smarter. We compare 14 quotes to get you the best deal.
Hello, welcome back. Now, we've been discussing a lot on the show this morning. We'll kick off with way back a while ago. We were talking about everything that happened in the Oireachtas committees yesterday with Noel Kelly and Ryan Tubridy ahead of an Oireachtas committee later on today about GAA Go. What have we got, Tommy?
Listen, it's the front page of every newspaper.
Yep.
Everybody was tuned in to watch Oireachtas television yesterday with Ryan Tubridy and his agent, Noel. Marin has said the speaker from RT, we had Gareth O'Callaghan, obviously former RT broadcaster, who was on speaking this morning, and he spoke about the anger with a lot of the staff in RT at the minute. He also said that Ryan needs to stand on his own 2 feet and not point the direction back towards his agent a lot. Yeah. So the speaker from RT, Gareth O'Callaghan, in your discussion is so right. Ryan needs to do this himself. His agent is not a credible witness or a get-out-of-jail-free card. He needs to own this as much as possible. And that was
his agent a credible witness? He's the one who did the deal.
But he deflected a lot of stuff.
He did the deal.
Said, yes, but he did it for him. You can't just say, "Oh, well, I had nothing to do with it." Like Ryan signed the agreement. Ryan, like whenever Noel came out of a meeting with RTE, it's not like Noel just went and did it without telling Ryan. He phoned Ryan, told him, "This is what we've got. This is what's going on." Like to say that you didn't know what was happening.
Yeah. Well, Janine says...
A lot of people don't feel that it stood up.
Janine's backing Ryan, says, I always really liked Ryan Tubridy. I thought he held himself really well yesterday. You could see how upset he was and how much this is affecting him. I'm sure it is affecting his life. My heart goes out to him, and to be honest, I hope to see him back on TV and radio very soon.
I've always thought he was a brilliant broadcaster. Loved him on the radio. Now, we were also talking about fake tan problems, and this is in the UK. I think over €2 million is what fake tan on sheets is costing the hotel industry in the UK. Just me, with 224 tons of soiled sheets, pillowcases, duvet covers and towels thrown away every year.
Oh my goodness, Susan.
We love you, Susan. We want you to come to studio, Susan.
We don't want your daughter. Don't mind the sheets. I have a ring of brown around my toilet bowls in the house from my daughter sitting on them with the blasted tan. I hate this stuff.
A ring of brown on the toilet.
Name and shame. Who's your daughter this morning? We'll get her on Zoom for a quick chat.
Sorry, but there's many people who are going, you have to do the domestic scrubs with that.
Do you tan your bum? Anyway, Sarah, I came home
You've never
from...
had any fun with your wife.
Huh?
Do you never have to do her back?
No.
Oh, you should. You'd have fun.
Well, it wouldn't be tan or bum either. Anyway, that's Sarah. I come home from work one day to a huge surprise. I was shocked to find a mahogany young boy covered in fake tan. It was in the carpets, on the beds, and the couches, everywhere. I can laugh now, but I cried at the time. Lovely.
He got into the fake tan. That is amazing.
We were also talking about AI and the picture. Earlier on we had the picture. Do we have the picture of Tommy and Muireann when they took the picture? Now, Tommy looks exactly the same. With the filter.
Same.
Muireann looks like...
That's not fair. No, it did not. No.
Oh, I did. Oh.
Do we have the picture?
Well, listen,
we'll try and get the picture.
Fiona said, my daughter won't take a photo without a filter. She hasn't for the past 4 years.
God.
It's really affecting her self-esteem, and I'm really concerned.
And this is the problem about it, because everybody just wants filters on their phones now. And like nobody looks the way you sort of. You're taking this picture and you go, God, I look great today, or I look really good, and it's not.
Or else, if you want to get a family photo, and they're like, no, I'm not getting a picture because I don't have the filter.
Yeah. Well, Jess says AI filters are getting more and more ridiculous. How can anyone believe that what they're seeing is real? They're so obviously fake, because your brain is changing as to what you expect it to be. And these days, like, paparazzi are still around. You're like, why are paparazzi still around when there's so many pictures of celebrities?
Yeah.
They get paid because when they get a bad shot, the celebrity and their people will buy the shot so there's no bad photos and they can manipulate all the photos out there. Like, Tommy is absolutely broke.
Very fake.
From paying.
Now,
there it is.
This
Now
is
look
me
at
with
Muireann.
Megan Fox this morning.
Look at Megan.
So there you go. We don't have the before and after, but that's...
There, you can show us. You can. Tommy looks the exact same.
And where I don't, honestly, the wrinkles and the... really not doing me any favours at all.
Now, thank you so much for all of your messages, as always. After the break, we have got a bundle of laughs. No pressure. Kevin McGahern will be joining us. We'll talk to you very shortly.
Welcome back. Now, our next guest is No Pressure, a comedic class act who's been entertaining audiences for over a decade.
Why do we do this? Can't we just say this lovely person has decided to get up early and come in to meet us?
Because we really want to be... This guy really is very, very, very funny.
We saw him don a pair of dancing shoes earlier this year, but now he's back behind the mic for his latest live show.
To entertain us.
To make us laugh for 10 minutes this morning.
Solid laughs.
It's Kevin
Laugh
McGahern.
a minute. Hey, guys.
Do you love those intros?
I love the intro. Any crack, any scandal?
No scandal, nothing going on. Nothing going on over here. There's nothing happening.
It's coming.
Is it?
Well, it seems to be everywhere. I mean, listen.
Have you found yourselves?
I got nothing. I didn't even get a mug from Republic of Telly when I left. That's all the.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we got nothing.
Well, we know where the money went, you see.
Onto the screen.
But have you found it there? Because I have seen comedians, the online comedians, kind of doing, like, they've just got too much material at the minute. They don't know what to do.
Yeah, it's like when Trump was in the White House. But
and we are, of course, talking about the Oireachtas Committee.
At the same time, like, you don't want to go too far because you're like, I would like to work for RT at some stage.
See, that's the thing.
So everything's fine.
Having worked there and been there before, and it's a very small country, there's not many places to work, and I'm not moving. I am hoping I'm not moving anytime soon. Would you fit over there?
You might be moving, yeah. Tell you what,
I know.
This could be a space opening up. You've worked with a lot of people who are over there as well. Like Jennifer Brady, for instance, one of them in Republic of Telly. It was a different time of comedy then. Back, like you kind of took the mickey out of people an awful lot.
Yeah, looking back now, it probably was. Yeah, you could get away with more. I think. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Because like some of the stuff, I look back and like, oh my God, I can't believe we did that. Alan, is Alan still here?
No.
Do you remember Alan was in an ad for...
Oh yeah.
What was it for?
Alan was in an ad. I think I'm going back for the ESB.
Yeah. ESB. So we did a parody of that ad with Mary McAvoy from Glenroe. And
I know.
like we got a lot of complaints. We got a lot of complaints.
For going after National Treasure, Alan Hughes.
I don't know, it wasn't the fact that it was like we were attacking Alan. It was just the subject of the sketch. It got quite romantic. and we got a lot of complaints.
Oh, of course, because it was the son and the mother.
Okay,
and
I didn't want to actually spell it out.
That was because I just remembered it now, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember that at the time.
Yeah.
But when you're younger, I suppose you're like, you don't care, you've got no thought of the future, you don't think you're going to be, living with married with 2 kids.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I mean, like, yeah, when you're younger, everything's funny. Everything is funny. And as well as that, like, our job was to take the mick out of TV, out of people like you. Yeah. And we did not... You had a schedule to keep. You had to, like, rip the urine. I'm trying to choose my words carefully here.
You're such a father to young children, isn't he? Trying to rip the urine.
Do you regret any of them, though? Do you think any
Oh,
of them?
yeah, some of them. Like, we went very hard on the chat shows. So we went very hard on Tubbs. We went very hard on Brendan O'Connor, on Ray. And then you end up meeting these people and, like, they might shake your hand a bit too hard at the IFTAs, and you're like, I kind of regret going a bit too hard.
But then there's someone because it's funny because you're going after someone, and then we were here talking to Connor Sketches, where he does his impersonations, and even when Mario was doing impersonations, and he'd be invited by Jose Mourinho.
He does them to their face.
Like, he does it to their face.
That's a different thing.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, because they're in on the joke, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's probably the wiser. We should have done that.
Well,
like with Maura and Dahi. So like Maura and Dahi, they don't care what you say about them. Mm-hmm. So they were in on the joke a lot of the time. You couldn't go hard enough on them.
You can't be on television and not expect people to take mickey out of you.
Yeah, that's true.
And particularly with social media, you get enough feedback from that anyway. It's not going to get much worse. But,
yeah, that's true.
How's life nowadays? You're taking part in a comedy festival with Paddy Power coming up as well.
That's
you're
right,
back behind the mic. You're busy.
Paddy Power Ivy Gardens Festival at the end of the month. It's very, very exciting. Highly recommend going down to it. Great acts from Ireland, from England, from all over the world, so it's a lot of fun.
It is genuinely, I go to it most years, like it's been in the Ivy Gardens for years. It's great crack, like properly, but it's also like your Christmas party, because you see behind you, you're like, oh, there's all the comedians having a chat.
Yeah.
And you all hang out together.
It's like a little summer camp for us.
Yeah.
And it's a great location, and, you get to have lovely food and have pints out in the field. I'm a big fan of drinking in fields.
I do think it's funny that everyone thinks, comedians are there, they're having a laugh and you all make each other laugh. But one thing I've noticed about comedians is that when you're doing your thing, others are standing off to the side, literally taking notes and then coming up to you going, didn't hit that punchline right.
Really? Yes, no, I don't know if it's that clinical. Like, if it's somebody you get on with.
Yeah, if it's a friend.
You can say, like, here, I thought of something here that might go well. But, like, you'd never do it to somebody that you're not...
That you didn't know.
No, that you're not very... I think you actually missed an opportunity here. They would just be like...
I'm going to give you a 5 out of 10 on that performance. Really,
we just stand there with scorecards.
Is the content controversial then again? Because you kind of seem to be regretting some of that stuff, or do you still go pretty hardcore?
See, on stage, it's a very different thing. On stage, you kind of feel like you can say... There's a kind of rule in comedy that we've all come into this little space and we can say whatever we want to a degree. Mm-hmm. On television, it's very, very different.
Yeah.
You have to think about every Mayo granny watching this, and will she be offended by this, As I'm sure you know.
And speaking of, he's gone straight for the Mayo grannies. Good morning. How did the Mayo grannies take to you putting on the sparkly pants and having the paddles turned on Dancing with the Stars?
I've got a whole new fan base that I cannot monetize in any way. But tiny children and very old ladies love me now, and neither of them are going to come to shows.
No.
It was totally pointless.
What can you do about
it? Did you enjoy it?
Man, it was the hardest thing I've ever done.
It's because it's like
thing. Would you ever do it?
Dancing sober in the middle of a nightclub and everybody's watching.
It's it was just incredibly difficult. Like,
why?
Because you're learning. It's a totally new thing.
Got the hips.
You've done well,
that took a lot of grease to get those hips that loose. But the pressure, because the standard was so high this year.
Yeah.
It was grand for the start, but then once it got serious, it was like, oh, I don't know, this isn't crack anymore. When it got to the stage where you literally can't put a foot wrong or you'll be gone, that's when it got scary.
And does it feel like do you have to play partially the politician? Because you have to you have to trawl for votes, right? You have to be kind of going out there. I remember one contestant her parents had their car wrapped in her face with the number beside her and they were driving around the place. Like, I was like, do you have to be a politician to be on Dancing with the Stars?
To an extent, yeah. But I don't think you can be too false.
Yeah.
Because people pick up on that. I think the key to just try and be as genuine as you can, you know?
Look at him. Give us a smile down the camera. Look at him. He's just...
Did you like shave the chest and like get the fake tan on like you went?
I did the fake tan. I don't have too much to shave really. But I did the fake tan. You have to do the fake tan. Otherwise you just look like an Irish person on holidays.
How were the sheets? Oh, because we were talking about that earlier on, the fake tan, the sheets being ruined. Was your missus like, oh my God,
She made me sleep outside for most of the run.
Good.
Yeah.
You and the dog. You and the dog.
Yeah.
Did your kids love it though? They must enjoy it.
Wallace loves it. Like Wallace is big into dancing, so like to this day, if we meet new people, Wallace, she's a real little presenter. She's like 2.5. So we'll meet somebody and Wallace just goes, this is Jesse, my brother, and this is Daddy dancing on the telly. Like she introduced me as Daddy dancing on the telly. She's a real little politician.
That is so cute.
Yeah.
I kind of love that. She's the politician. She'll be ready to go. I think most of the country, when we watched, because obviously we all watched The Last Duel because it was filmed in Ireland for so long, and our national treasure, Matt Damon, with the Super Value band.
Yeah.
And I remember being in the cinema watching it and going, Kevin McGahern! Like, 3 people just went like that. Like your big moment, because when films are happening here, surely you're like, yeah, I want to go in that, I want to go in that.
Yeah, I mean, you've no real control over what you get and what you don't get, obviously. You just get calls and you're like I didn't have any lines in it. So, like, my audition tape was like, there was dialogue and I had to act like, I was basically, my audition tape was this: hi, I'm Kevin McGahern, reading for the part of clueless vassal. And I just went, oh. Thank you very much. And that was it. That was my audition tape. It felt so silly to do.
My goodness.
But imagine the amount
of talent.
I was just about to say, did you...
Were you transported there?
I was just about to say, did you study us every morning? Clueless vassals. Who can I study for that? Morning,
felt
Tommy.
like I was Matt Damon watching that going, sign him up. Sign him up. Clueless vessel. Yeah, exactly. You played me very well. Fair play. Listen, Kevin McGahern, you are going to be at the Paddy Power Comedy Festival, which is going to kick off on July 27th. Until the 30th, it'll be a bundle of laughs.
Genuinely great
Hope
fun.
to see us there.
Absolutely.
Really good. I really enjoy that festival.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, guys.
Clueless Vassal, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Off any more television programmes, stay away from us.
He's only dying for it.
We've got cod curry on the menu for your midweek meal.
Plus, it's all about jumpsuits, jeans and jackets on the catwalk. We'll be back with you very shortly.
It's giving them material.
We compare 14 insurance quotes to get you the best deal. So choose chill and work smarter, not harder.
This morning we'll see scattered showers of rain or drizzle with sunshine occasionally breaking through, with highest temperatures of 14 to 18 degrees. And this afternoon showers will turn heavy and possibly thundery in Ulster. Highest temperatures of 16 to 19 degrees. Tonight then there will be clear spells and well scattered showers mainly in Ulster and in Munster, with lowest temperatures of 9 degrees. And that's your weather outlook.
Chill Insurance work harder so you can work smarter. We compare 14 quotes to get you the best deal.
Now, stylist Mandy Mara joins us now with everything from jumpsuits to kimonos. It's fashion.
It's
fashion.
Handy with the fashion. Good morning, Mandy.
Good morning to you. How are you?
Great, thank you.
Okay, so let's get into our first look.
So our first look is coming from Pure Boutique, which is in Letterkenny, and they're also online as well. And it's lovely to be showcasing for the first time actually this morning. But this jumpsuit, I'm loving it because it's a great little holiday piece that you can pop in your suitcase and away you go. And it doesn't crease, so it's a big friend of mine completely. As we know, I'm allergic to ironing. But it's a nice jumpsuit. It comes in the navy. They have a couple of colours in it. And what I actually like about it as well, if you notice at the waist, and I don't know if the camera is going to pick up on this, but we've actually belted it slightly as a knot at the front. But you can take that off and change around that look if you want to actually make a different wrap out of the actual jumpsuit itself.
Right, okay. Gotcha. So that's the jumpsuit here, and we're going to see actually how it is at the very end. Is it tucked up?
Well, no, actually, I'd need to actually get up and restyle it if I was going to rechange it, but you can actually open it up if you wanted to.
No, but at the bottom they come up like that.
Sorry, from the bottom part of it, yes, there is. They're a little cuffed elastic leg, which we've actually raised them up this morning. They are a little bit longer, but I wanted to make them look a little bit more trendier.
I like that cuff.
It's nice, isn't
yeah,
it?
very summer, very holidays.
Yeah, and it's great. And as I said, it's a piece that you're going to walk in without it just being too casual, but yet a little bit dressier, particularly if you're going for lunch or something like that as well. It's a nice little outfit.
Even handy for
And you've matched it, just the bag here, then to accessories?
We do, exactly. We just teamed up with a gorgeous little bag. It has a gold chain strap, which is detachable as well. But it just, as I said, it's simple, it's across the body, and away you go. Holds what you need to hold, and off you go.
Lovely, Dervla, thank you so much for that.
It's a nice little jumpsuit, isn't it? It's great to see it off.
Lovely little jumpsuit.
Now, Jen is here this morning for her first time. Lovely to have you here with us,
we
Jen.
welcome Jen this morning. And Jen, we're staying with Pure Boutique in Letterkenny, and this time we're starting with the denim jacket. As we all know, there are certain pieces in our wardrobe that are staple pieces.
Time and time again, yeah.
And you see it time and time again on the runway here as well. There's always something a little bit different. And again, like that, a fabulous denim jacket, away you go.
Like
great
mix.
Holiday piece. And it's really light as well, which is great. And it's not a hard denim. But we teamed it up then with this beautiful dress. Isn't it lovely?
Yeah.
It's very just ladylike. It's simple. It has a gorgeous little flowers. You can see print on it. It also comes in red and lilac as well, which comes in other colours if that's what you choose. But again, like that, there's really nothing to do with something like this. You pop it on, you're looking chic, and off you go.
And it's elasticated at the waist.
It sure does. It has elasticated waist. Now, we did add this belt this morning, which, as you see, is a designer-inspired belt. So again, like that, we just wanted to add a little bit of something different in a colour by adding this beige belt with it.
Lovely.
And then the bag.
Teamed up then with the same matching colour bag, then nice, as I said, nice gold strap on it, which adds that little bit of luxurious feel, doesn't it? Kind of gives a little bit, making it look a little bit more expensive looking, to finish off the look.
And once Mandy says it,
What?
we know it.
What?
Luxurious.
Oh,
Luxurious. We come here. Now, I'm a huge fan of kimonos, so anytime that they're in, I love it.
And they really are a fabulous piece to have in your wardrobe. And they literally, as you say yourself, you can have them with anything. You can wear it like we have it here today, but as you said yourself earlier, Muireann, you can also wear it popping onto the beach over swimwear or anything like that as well. So it really, really does work well. This full look is from Ivory Lane Boutique. They're based in Oranmore, and they're also based in Limerick as well, or online. But again, like that, it's the colours that we're seeing here in this. It's stunning. You've got your pink, you've got your navy, you've got your different colour flowers. So indeed, if you wanted to pop this over a dress, another outfit, a pair of trousers, indeed a jumpsuit, whatever, away you go.
And then the cammy's beautiful with it. So that's kind of an off-white with the white jeans.
That's correct, and it is an off-white cami. But again, like that, what I like about camis, I honestly believe in your wardrobe you should have a collection of camis because you'll have them forever. Different colours, Alan.
Do you think the hair, you put the hairspray on a white top inside and the makeup doesn't transfer?
It actually stops it from sticking to your skin as well.
Oh, so do you think that works?
It definitely does work.
I need to get better hairdressing.
Yeah, absolutely, it does work. We teamed this up then with these gorgeous jeans. As you see, the jeans are cropped slightly at the end as well. But again, in white jeans, you do know the difference between a cheaper pair of white jeans and something a little bit more expensive. The quality in jeans, in particular with white, you do need to, I always feel, invest.
The kick flare in those are
because they're better quality as well. And the kick flare, they're nice, aren't they?
They're gorgeous.
There's something a little bit different, as I said, in the three-quarter length as well.
And then the flip-flop sandals.
Then these great little sliders then as well, in the gold. They have them in silver as well. But again, like that, what you pop on the feet with something like this, you could put trainers, you could easily put heels with this, but I'm loving the slider.
And the bag's quite unusual.
Now, I love this.
Yeah, isn't this cool?
Yeah.
I'm loving it as well. It's actually to hold your mobile phone is actually what it's for.
Yeah.
So
but you could have your credit card, your mobile phone, your keys, wherever, just going out for the night. Yeah.
And again, like that, it just adds a little bit of luxury to the full outfit as well. And again, we wore crossbody. So I'm liking it. It just completes the look.
I know, I love those now. They've gotten very big.
And the earrings?
And the earrings then, to add the whole pop of colour, we went with these great pink earrings then in the end. So again, like that, as I said, brings the full look together. We have a large collection of jewellery in Ivory Lane, of course.
Beautiful. Oh my God, thank you so much.
And it's Begum's first morning as well with us.
Congratulations.
So they're all starting out this morning.
Dervla's back with us, looking very smart.
Glam.
Now this we love, and Dervla and I always have a laugh when we're doing fittings because this is so us.
Dervla came out with such a big smile on her face. She's like, this is the one for me,
she's loving life this morning. But
it's class, isn't
it?
Yeah.
And it's so elegant. And there's honestly, again, like that, and I'm always saying about wardrobe staple pieces, invest in pieces like good blazers. You will never go wrong with them. They will forever be in fashion. They don't date.
Yeah.
And this beautiful red, as you can see, with a gold zip detail. It has a gorgeous little, as you see, the brass buttons as well on the front there. And it also has it on the sleeve too.
Gorgeous.
Really nice. And the little shirt.
The
then
shirt,
underneath.
there's a lot going on with the shirt.
And the check shirt, isn't it just beautiful?
Yeah.
And again, like that, the quality on it is phenomenal. And lots of colours going on in
There's
the print
blues,
texture.
greens, oranges, reds, like limes. For people, if you can't pick it up on the television, there's lots. It's really nice and it's lovely quality.
And could you imagine that even with with different colour skirts?
Yeah.
I'm sure you can easily mix and matches with so many pieces. But again, like that, just feel that this whole look, it does look very luxurious as well.
Lovely. And the jeans with this one, lovely navy.
And then we went with these gorgeous navy jeans. And again, like that, they are cropped at the end, as you can see, with that little kick out as well. And this is very much, obviously, as you can see, is the style for this season too.
And you've dressed this up.
Sandals with this, yeah?
Yeah, I went a little bit dressier with this and went with these knotted sandals, which I adore. I just think they're absolutely gorgeous. And again, just to bring the whole thing up a little bit more dressier, probably for more of a nighttime look. I could easily wear this going out for dinner.
Little clutch bag then with it also.
Exactly, and went with this clutch bag. Again, they have them in a variety of colours, but we kept it quite muted from a point of view. Went with the black for plain because there was so much going on with the check shirt and the red jacket. That's why we just kept it quite simple on the bag.
And little pair of earrings to finish it off.
And then finished off, who doesn't love pearls? Pearls, I just think, are amazing. I love pearl earring. I just think they're classy, they're elegant, they're timeless. And that's what I love about this full look in particular.
I just love Dermot's face while she's
I know,
wearing it. She's so into it.
I said, you model different even when you wear outfits you really love. She does.
She's so into it.
She says, Mandy, I'm loving life.
She's thinking where she's going to wear the blazer to.
I was going to say she's legging it to the car now. She's not taking it off.
She's going back to the shop.
She's gone.
See you there. Bye. Thank you, Mandy.
Thanks
so much for that.
Thank you.
Now, time for a quick break. Tommy's in the kitchen. What are we cooking, Tommy?
Thank you very much, Al. Yes, I can't believe they left it to the last segment of the day. I'm so hungry. But anyway, Jack O'Keefe is here and he's going to be serving up a coconut curry after the break. See you then.
Thanks for staying with us. Now in the kitchen today, we have a marvellous mix of fish, if you could find it, and curry.
Jack O'Keefe is serving up a pan-fried cod in creamy coconut curry sauce. Good morning.
Mouthful, isn't it?
Morning.
That is a hell of a mouthful.
I'm going to start writing menu titles.
there you go.
To be fair, we have, we can't shy away. We have been talking about marine wildlife and stuff, and you actually have a point on this as well, how difficult it is to get.
You are trying to find
organic fish.
Even
is that right?
Good quality organic fish. Doesn't have to be organic, even line caught, you know. This Irish supermarkets are brilliant in everything they do. There is a shortage of fish out there. Let's not beat around the bush, right? Mm-hmm. So I always try and keep it to kind of farmed fish if I can, especially Irish farm fish, like Irish farm salmon or Irish farm trout. There's stunning trout from a landlocked county of Kilkenny. That's the only ever positive thing you'll hear from a Cork man about Kilkenny.
But is it more expensive then, Jack?
Yeah, it's quite expensive. To be honest, at home, I rarely eat fish. Rarely. I eat a lot of mussels, oysters, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because I'm just bougie that way. But the mussels are cheap. They're everywhere. You see them when you're on your holidays in the west coast of Ireland. They're plentiful, you know. So
it's a bit more difficult. But anyway, listen, we are doing a curry today, and you throwing cod in it. But you could throw anything in.
We could throw anything. And I'm not even using cod today because I couldn't get good enough quality cod yesterday. I was doing my shopping.
What are you using?
So it's sea bass.
Sea bass.
Right, okay.
And we'll talk about that when we get to it.
You're eating cod there?
Well, I haven't eaten it yet.
I just like them all the time, right? So making our curry sauce, okay? I want pre-prepared already. But here in the pan, I have some onions, garlic, ginger, and red chilies. Just salt it off, sweat it down with a little bit of oil, and that's it. Look at that lovely colour, nice and fragrant.
I've been eating that on its own, to be honest.
Yeah, it's half, it's gone. So then next thing in is about half a teaspoon of cumin and coriander powder. Pop that in on top of the onions, and just wait till it gets nice and fragrant in the pan. So as the spices hit the dry pan, they begin to toast off, release their essential oils, and that's when you get that really good banging flavour.
Okay.
Then in on top of that, we're going to add some tomato paste just for a little red colour. And again, this is a really, really simple, effective dish that you can do at home. In on top of the tomato paste, I always put a good bit of sugar into my curries. It's what gives that lovely, sweet, unctuous kind of flavour.
Sugar. Right.
And it counteracts with the spiciness of the chilli and the saltiness of everything else. Some lemongrass. You get this in most supermarkets, so it's like a lime flavour almost. Hit it with the back of your knife just to smash it, drop it straight in.
So the whole thing goes in?
Straight in.
And can you?
But how do you eat that?
I was going to say, do you eat that then?
You take it out before you blend it. Yeah.
Okay.
So add in some full-fat coconut milk.
And why do you have to whack it like that?
Just releases the flavours from the inside, rather than cutting it up. So you can leave it whole. Think of it like a tea bag.
Yeah,
Smash it up, drop it in, and then when you're ready to blend, just take it out. And I've given away the next step of the recipe. Once this comes to a simmer, just leave it simmer away for about 5 to 8 minutes. and then hit it with a stick blender and blend it till it's a lovely smooth curry like that.
I have to, we're eating it right
It
now.
is lovely,
Right,
yeah. It's
So
very
here's the
nice.
actual-
It's very tasty.
When I'm on air, I love to kind of teach people a technique rather than just a recipe. And I've gone on about this for over the last few years here and there. This technique goes for every single fish that has its skin on. Everyone's worried about pan frying fish at home that's going to stick to their pan. I don't have good enough pans. If we're cooking fish, I have to go and buy a new pan. That's a crap old joke that I pulled out the bottom of the cabinet.
Non-mistake,
Look,
right?
It's not a pretty pan. It's just a dirty old thing that I used to use for pasta.
Smoke coming off
Right,
it.
smoke coming off the whole lot. Get it hot. Have your fish on a tray with some kitchen paper on it so the skin dries out. That'll get you really crispy skin. My next tip is some parchment paper or greaseproof paper. Pop it down. Put a little bit of olive oil or any kind of oil you have onto
the paper.
Onto the paper.
In
Take
the
your
pan,
fish.
right?
Pop it straight down. And just circle it around like so. You hear it?
Cook it on the parchment paper.
Cook it on the parchment. Nothing will happen to the parchment. It might go a little bit tanned or like a tobacco colour, but that's it.
It won't go
Watch
on
it.
fire, like.
Look at the way it's dancing on the pan. No sticking, nothing.
Great.
That's clever, isn't it?
Leave that on the skin side for about 3 minutes.
So that takes away all the cleaning and everything.
And that's how we
Just
would do
chuck
it, like
it in
in
the bin.
mass amounts. Like, let's say you had a massive dinner party or a massive wedding.
Yeah.
We would do it like that. We'd actually literally put oven trays on top of gas rings, put parchment paper into the oven trays, and we'd pan fry hundreds of fish fillets off at the same time.
Wow.
Using the parchment, yeah.
Oh, very interesting.
And you can see absolutely not stuck, nothing. So about 2 to 3 minutes, then flip it over. You have lovely crispy skin. Obviously use a fish slice. And like, if you're at home, leave it for longer so you get a nice colour.
How crispy do you get that? Like,
in the ideal world, I actually leave it on the skin side down for the whole cooking time. I never actually flip it. I leave it down.
It does cook through.
And the bottom is nice and beige and white, and then the other side is golden and crisp. Yeah. Right? So then...
the sea bass is gorgeous.
Yeah, the sea bass is lovely.
So I'm just going to pop this off onto the side for now. And again, I'll always, especially like sea bass like that, it's so small and thin. That literally take about 3 minutes to cook, and that's fully done.
Oh, really?
So then
We overcook fish, don't we?
Yeah, we do. So once you actually start to see the whites coming out from the skin, that white kind of fat, that means it's overcooked, it's finished.
Oh, it's overdone
It's
at that
starting to be
stage.
fully cooked, yeah. So pan, screaming hot, all that lovely fish flavour inside there, some green beans, some sugar snaps, some pak choi leaves, and then I have just some scallions that I've just cut into about 1.5 inch pieces, just to give it that kind of stir-fry look.
Now, this pak choi looks very cool, but how do you eat that when you only have a fork or a spoon?
Hey,
how do you eat that?
I may have forgot to bring the cutlery in with
All
me.
right.
All right.
As well as my imaginary
I'm not
salt.
even
that I
gonna
always
try
got.
that,
Pak choi,
I love it. I put it in everything. Even like in French cooking, Italian cooking, I'll use pak
choi in Italian
Treat
and
it like
French.
spinach. Treat it the exact same way as spinach. Or like even kale.
Pak
It's like
choi,
a summery version. It's like when you bite into it, it's like a big bang of moisture in your mouth. So I'm just sauteing this off until it gets a little bit of colour. And then I finish it with some lime juice. That just freshens it up. Toss it into your curry.
Lob it in.
Just straight in. And again, that curry in some Tupperware will last for 3 to 4 days in your fridge.
So this is your curry here, though, like
that's
that
it.
you're doing.
Simmering away.
So how long do you leave it simmering?
Just less than 10 minutes.
Oh, less than 10 minutes.
That's it.
Now, the colour that you have there is totally different to the one that's in the pan, though.
Because once you blend it, all the chilies and tomato actually blitzes up and it mixes into the colour, yeah.
And then just with a bit of whole grain rice on
There was
top.
no magic of TV cheating involved here.
Lovely stuff. Jack O'Keefe.
So then you pop it into your serving bowl like that, if you're doing a full portion.
Wow.
Just dump it in, as usual.
You can
Big
really
mess.
taste the sugar and the sweetness in it as well. And obviously, I think
Do you make the rice from scratch?
I knew you'd do it to me. I knew you'd do it.
Boil in
I
the bag.
microwave the rice, okay?
Boil in the bag. Microwave, yeah.
Right. Bean sprouts, coriander.
Look
and
at
that's
that.
it.
Done.
Really simple. Supposed to be
we're
cod, but
set.
actually a sea bass curry.
Sea bass curry.
Coconut.
Jack, thank you so much. Always
bother,
fabulous.
guys.
Myrne,
Thank you, Jack.
we'll keep you some.
You're just over there. I can see it. We've got loads coming up on the show tomorrow. Amy Price, she bites back and sets a record straight on her famous daughter, Katie Price. She'll be chatting about her new tell-all book.
We're going to be taking a holistic approach to bug bites and stings.
Oh, plus Brian Lloyd was here with all the latest on what to watch this weekend. Ireland AM is live from 7 tomorrow. Have a great day. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
There's lovely curry.
Picking things out.